Now then, lad, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast. Paddy the Baddy Fight Week, UFC 314, and I'm here. I'm just messing. Welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, ladies and gentlemen. The show, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And as I already mentioned, it's Paddy the Baddy Fight Week. And I'm not joined by Paddy the Baddy. I'm joined with Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
I'm excited for this one. Obviously, the UFC returns to the Miami, UFC 314, and we got a stacked pay-per-view card we're going to break down, as always, on the Ground and Pound podcast. Hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. We're going to start with the early prelims, going all the way to the main event, giving you our picks, predictions. We're going to talk a little bit about betting insight. Carlos, are you ready to get into the picks and the breakdowns?
Let's do it.
Let's get it. So first up, we have Hailey Cowan taking on Nora Cornolle, and I'm going to pass this one over to my co-host, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
Well, I think pretty much we'll go with Cornolle. I think Nora will just stay busy and, probably use her experience to get the victory. Not that Hailey is not a good athlete. She is a very good athlete, but unfortunately, that's the only thing that she brings to the table. She has quick hands, quick feet. She has long strikes, but the problem is she's not very well versed in anything that she does. It doesn't look like she's actually creating a lot of damage when she's striking. And Nora's an athlete too, but she's an athlete that knows how to fight. Whereas she's still, Cowan is still learning how to fight. And maybe that's the difference in the fight. Maybe Cornolle is able to use her strength and her movement to tactically fight her. Maybe Cowan's athletic ability will make her push the pace and probably get the decision. Either way, I just think Cornolle's experience will probably pull this through. One thing I wanted to point out was that, she actually graduated from Baylor University on athletic scholarship. You know what I mean? So she is no joke. And in the words of the great Michael Scott, Baylor hardly know her.
And not to mention that her hair isn't as luscious as mine this week. But yeah, I don't have too much to add. I'm also going to go with Cowan here. I'm going to go with Nora Cornolle here. Five-time French Muay Thai champion. I was able to find that out. Very, very physically strong for the division, so I do like that. She likes to implement the clinch and knees in her game plan most of the time, and she was able to sweep Mullins in one of her fights, Melissa Mullins, who's a much better grappler than herself. So I do like her in this matchup. I also noticed that Cowan as well, 2-year layoff that I don't really like, especially for somebody that's been learning the sport. It might help her, it might not. Depending on how much she's been able to get in the gym. But it said that she's had back-to-back devastating injuries. I believe she broke her leg and she had an ankle injury. So for an athlete like her, like Carlos mentioned, who's obviously Division I Baylor gymnast, she might be able to come back better and, have a much better showing than what she's done in the past. But the thing I noticed with her as well is she tends to if she gets taken down, she gets held down and she won't get up for the rest of the round. So I think that's a bad recipe if you're fighting someone like Nora Cornolle, because she's probably going to have the better striking. She's going to be, physically very, very strong in the clinch. And also as well, if she can get into the clinch and get takedowns, I think that also is another path to victory here. And from a betting standpoint as well, Cornolle actually did open as the underdog and has now moved to the favorite. So following the line movement, I got to pick her here. And it's 2 picks, I believe, on the Ground and Pound podcast for the French woman to get it done early on the prelims. And next up, we have Tresean Gore taking on Marco Tulio. Tulio is how you say? Yeah, Tulio.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, to be honest with you, this one picked itself for me, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever picked a Tresean Gore in any matchup ever, and I don't plan on starting now. Tulio, what I will say is he does have a really nice counter right hand. One of the things I noticed on tape with him is that he'll load up on his right hand and he'll sometimes throw and leave himself exposed. But what he does is when his opponent comes in and he's patient, he looks to counter strike, he can have a lot of success finding big shots. And I'd like to see him do that here. I'd like to see him wait for Gore to come into the pocket, look to counter and use his power. I think on the feet, I think he's worlds apart. He has nice kicks, nice spinning kicks. When he switches southpaw, he likes to blast kicks to the head, blast kicks to the body. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think Tresean Gore is just very raw in the sport, started very late. Obviously doesn't have anywhere near as much experience in terms of MMA compared to Marco. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think the 2 guillotine wins that he's had so far in the UFC have been kind of Hail Mary, a little bit raw and not necessarily set up professionally. I think it's more of a, I don't want to say luck, but athleticism against lower level competition. I don't see him having much success here against Marco. I think Marco gets it done on the feet. I think if Tresean tries to wrestle, I think that Marco's going to be prepared for that. I feel fairly confident in Marco here, but one thing I will say is that he does leave his chin a little bit exposed when he tries to come in and be overly aggressive. He does get tagged at times, so I would like to see him maybe look to counter-strike here against Gore, but ultimately I'm going to pick Marco to get it done. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
I also went with Tulio. The reason being is Gore is on a win streak, beating Antonio Ciccoli and Josh Freem. It's great that you're getting the victories, but the type of opponent, as you had already stated, that he's getting the victories against aren't very impressive. I feel Tulio's a problem. He has good control of his movement. I would call it good economy of striking, or basically just not wasting motions and movements, because he doesn't throw anything unless he knows it's going to land, and he doesn't really go for takedowns unless he knows he's going to get you up against the cage. So I think that's a pretty good way to save your cardio for the rest of the fight. The only thing I don't like about Tulio is the fact that he lets his opponents get off first. Fighting from behind with someone like Tresean, he's going to want to take you to the ground. Strike-wise, I don't really think there's going to be an issue. He's probably going to look to try to out-grapple him, which is probably not a good idea. I feel that Tulio is more well-versed when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has a little bit more to offer than the guillotine. So he does do some touch strikes, some feints, but for the most part, he likes to actually stick you with a shot. It doesn't look like he's putting everything behind it, but they're usually pretty solid, and it's good for him to control the distance of the fight. So, Tulio, let's get it done.
Yeah, I just wanted to add as well before we move on, Tulio as well, training at Shooter Box Gym with the likes of Charles Oliveira, Daniel Santos, and Elvis Brenner. You have to think that he's going to be prepared for that guillotine of Gore as well. Probably some of the best people to work with if you're trying to work on guillotine defense. So I just don't see a path to victory here other than an outside crazy KO for Gore. But 2 picks there for Tulio. And next up, we have Sumudaerji taking on Mitch Raposo. And I'm going to pass this one to Carlos. Is the new, is he from New England Cartel still, or has he moved gyms? I'm not sure, but is it going to be a hometown guy for you in this matchup, or are we going to go with Sumudaerji, Carlos?
Well, I love supporting the hometown guy. I love to see a guy do good, and Raposo is actually not a bad fighter. You know what I mean? He's got good technical skills. He doesn't fight frantic. He kind of learns to, pick his opponents apart in the regional scene. But what we've seen as in the UFC, he doesn't have that much success. He's the type of guy that needs to get off first. He kind of fights from behind on the feet, and that's definitely not good in that weight class in the UFC. You've got to try to impose yourself first. So, unfortunately, I'm going to go with Sumudaerji. Okay. Raposo needs to mask like some of his takedowns with some strikes, which can be done. The problem is Sumudaerji's got a fantastic straight. I want to say it's right hand or is it left? I'm not too sure off the top of my head.
Left.
But he's been left hand. That's correct, and he's been dropping a lot of his opponents with that. And the fact that it's a straight punch means it's probably pretty hard for his opponents to see. And I think he masked it pretty decent. There's not a lot of fat on it. It's just one quick movement, boom, down the middle. I hope Raposo is working on his wrestling because he's going to need that to get any advantage. And I just don't see how he takes down Sumudaerji. And although he's kind of just a one-trick pony, he's got some stand-up. But the problem is his takedown defense is getting a little better each fight. So I'm going with Sumudaerji.
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. I agree. I'm going to go with Sumudaerji here. And this one was actually really tough for me. I don't actually hate a bet on Mitch Raposo. 26 could come in here, improved since what we've seen him in his last fight. And I just want to remind people that his last split decision loss against Lima was on short notice. So Lima missed weight, I believe it was by 5 pounds in that fight, and he just didn't quite push the pace. I wish that his corner kind of emphasized that a little bit more to him and implemented the wrestling. I think he could have had maybe pulled that one out. And I agree with Carlos, what Carlos said about the wrestling. I think if he can come in here and he can shoot takedowns, I think that's got to be the game plan against Sumudaerji, because in previous fights, not the Charles Johnson fight, but the fights prior to that against like Matt Schnell and a couple of others, he's been taken down repeatedly, and that's clearly been the path to victory. And as Carlos also said as well, Sumudaerji hasn't worked on his ground game. He is very nice on the ground, but he can be taken down. So I would like to see Raposo come in here, mix in the wrestling, but ultimately I just think that the striking and the aggression, the length, the reach of Sumudaerji is going to be too much. On the feet, Sumudaerji, when he fought Charles Johnson, who's a respectable striker himself, he looked good going into that third round. He kind of built with confidence there. The fact that he likes to blast kicks in the southpaw stance as well, I like that. I think he can, throw uppercuts and knees to kind of keep the wrestling of Mitch away. And I did like the fact that Mitch does have nice boxing and quick hands, but I just think that he's going to be out of range. And if he's not going to get into the clinch and make it dirty, which he didn't appear to do in his last fight, I just have to go with Sumudaerji here just to, kind of implement the same strategy that I've seen him do up until this point in his career on the feet. So if Mitch comes here and wrestles, he could win, but ultimately I'm going to go with Sumudaerji to get it done. And next up, we have Sedriques Dumas taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup?
I got Michal Oleksiejczuk. Dumas has a height and reach advantage in this fight. Decent striking and grappling, but hasn't finished any of his 3 victories that he's had in the cage. Michal is simply going to just bully him around in the cage. He may be the smaller guy in this, and he may have like the reach disadvantage, but he's also bringing in that tough mentality where it doesn't really matter who you are. He comes in angry, comes in aggressive, and he's coming to throw heat. And I feel like one of these bombs is going to catch Dumas. He likes to stand up high, chin up, hands around his shoulders. And I don't see him going this fight without getting caught a few times. Probably one to end the fight too.
Yeah, 2 for Oleksiejczuk here for me as well. I haven't necessarily been all that impressed with Dumas. I'm kind of surprised the UFC still has him around. And we've seen as well with Oleksiejczuk that most of the time when he's fighting and losing, the opponents he's losing to are fairly high level. I've got a list here. You've got Shara Bullock, Kevin Holland, Michel Pereira. All of those, are creditable, high level guys, established names in the UFC. And a lot of the people that Dumas is beating, they're very low level guys and not necessarily that impressive of wins. So, I'm definitely going to lean to Oleksiejczuk here, especially on the feet. When he comes to his striking, he's definitely got the finishing upside. I think on the feet as well, if he can hang with the likes of, Chidi Nchikawani, who he was able to knock out, I definitely think he's not going to have much trouble getting into the pocket, getting on the inside against Dumas and landing big shots. And also as well, because Dumas is fairly fresh to MMA as a whole, doesn't have that kind of high-level experience in comparison to Oleksiejczuk, I just don't really see what he's going to be able to offer in terms of a ground game, which has proven to be the way that you beat Oleksiejczuk. And we've seen him kind of work on his grappling, Dumas, but ultimately he does tend to just be much, a kickboxer. And if he just decides to kickbox with Oleksiejczuk, he's going to lose in that particular style matchup. So I just think, getting to MMA too late, 3-2 in the UFC. I kind of feel like the UFC knows what they're doing with Dumas. They're kind of just using him to fill out prelims and putting him on the card as a guy that they know is going to have a stand-up affair. Ultimately as well, one of the things that really swayed me in this fight was Oleksiejczuk decided to move gyms and go to the Fighting Nerds, and we all know about the success that the Fighting Nerds have had. So you have to feel that he's going to be training with some high-level guys. I'm sure he's been training with Caio Bajalio and even Gene Silva, who's been getting ready for a fight on the main card of this event. So, yeah, 2 for Oleksiejczuk here. I feel fairly confident in him, and I like a bet on him this week, if I'm being honest. And next up, we have Darren, the Damage Elkins, taking on Julia Erosa. And I got to be honest with you, Carlos. I don't know if you saw the odds for this particular fight, but this one kind of stood out to me. I'm actually going to go with Darren Elkins as a big underdog here. He's actually plus 300, Darren Elkins, in this matchup. And I know what some people are going to say. Well, he is 40 years old. He is the smaller guy in this particular matchup. But I know what I'm going to get from Darren Elkins, the damage man. He's going to come forward. He's going to be pressuring. He's going to be using his wrestling. And the thing with Julian Erosa, for him to be a 3-1 favorite, he's super chinny. We've seen him get knocked out. He's a finisher, but he's also a kill or be killed kind of guy. And I don't think that you finish Darren Elkins in this particular matchup. I think he goes in. I think he wrestles Erosa. I think he weathers a storm early. I think his cardio holds out. I think he controls here for a decision win. I think plus 300 for Darren Elkins is insane. And I want to take a shot on the underdog here as a small wager. And I will say as well, both guys could fall off a cliff at any moment. Either guy could get finished, considering that, the age, the damage on the, the tread on the tires for both guys. Erosa does have a nice guillotine, but I've seen Elkins in the past fight out of many guillotines. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. So, give me Darren Elkins to get the upset here as the big underdog. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
Listen, man, let me tell you, Elkins is fun to watch, takes damage, comes back, inflicts his own damage. Exciting, but personally, I feel that that's not going to happen. I understand Erosa's been caught. He's a little chinny, as you would say. But Erosa has all the physical advantages. He's been tested through tough fights. He's got good cardio. He fights through fatigue. It may not be pretty, but he still fights through it. And I think Elkins needs that from his opponent, especially at this age, after all the damage he's taken. He needs you to be gassed so that he can actually inflict his power on you, because he doesn't carry big power, but he can hurt you once you're fatigued or once, maybe he catches you with like a body shot or something. You know what I mean? He's got to get you. He's got to wear you down a little bit. I think Erosa will not fall for that. I think that he's going to use his reach. He's going to stay long. He's going to use his movement. And I think he gets the job done. Do I think it's going to be a back and forth war? I think so. I just don't think that Elkins carries the ability to land right on the money to hurt him until he's absolutely drained. And I don't see that happening to Erosa.
Yeah, I will say if the fight stays mostly on the feet and Erosa is able to keep the fight standing, I do think he does have the advantage there, not just with the reach, but in the stand-up as a whole, technique-wise. But I just believe that in this matchup, it's crazy to me that Elkins is that big of an underdog. I don't necessarily think that somebody like Erosa should be a 3-1 favorite, considering that he's been finished so many times. And don't get me wrong, I know Elkins has obviously taken a lot of damage throughout his career, but he's always proven to be durable and uses cardio as a weapon. So I kind of expect Erosa maybe even to win the first round. And then if you get, Elkins after the first round, sitting on the stool, he looks fairly decent. I like a live bet on him. Maybe you'd even get him at a better price to win rounds 2 and 3 with his wrestling. But a little bit of dissension here on the Ground and Pound podcast. So I'm interested to see how this one goes. I think this one will be a great fight. And next up, we have Old Lion versus Young Lion. We got Chase Hooper taking on Jim fucking Miller. I'll say it, Bruce Buffer. Don't worry. Honestly, I'm excited for this one too. This whole card is stacked. I'm really looking forward to this one. And Chase Hooper, obviously, we've seen him kind of grow in the UFC so far. Still very young, 25 years old, big for the division, 6'1". Very, very, very much improved striking in his last fight. Against Clay Guida. We obviously know that he's got that slick jiu-jitsu, but he actually looked a lot more comfortable in the stand-up now, which I think is obviously showing, that he can obviously improve, which is what I always say about young fighters, that, we could see them, 1 minute looking bad in stand-up or one particular part of MMA, and they come back in their next fight, and all of a sudden they look worlds different from their last fight. And Chase Hooper just looks like he's really coming into his own at the moment, and he's the biggest favorite on the card here to get it done against Jim Miller. And I'm going to pick him here. And I do love Jim Miller. Great calf kicks, obviously savvy veteran, still holds a lot of power in his shots. But I think Chase Hooper, honestly, I just think this fight, if it stays on the feet, Miller can have success. But I think ultimately Chase tries to mix in the grappling. His wrestling's really improved working with, what's his name? Ben Askren. I couldn't think of the name there for a second. But Ben Askren, obviously he's worked on his wrestling and he's able to get fights to the ground now. His transitions are fantastic. His back takes are fantastic. He's been working with Mike Mutsusi. I'm going to butcher that name. The Italian kid who's the jiu-jitsu wizard. who people are quite familiar with at the moment over in the grappling world. He's been doing a lot of training with him. So I think he's going to be worlds apart on the ground, even though Jim Miller is a credentialed black belt. And yeah, I like him pretty much wherever the fight goes. I think Miller's always got a puncher's chance, but I think there's a reason that the UFC is kind of building Chase Hooper's name here off of Miller at 41. There's not much tread left in the tires, and I think Chase Hooper gets it done. How about you, Carlos? Who do you like in this matchup?
Oh, brother, I love Jim Miller, man. Always have. Hope he always does well. But we trained together a few times. His wrestling mixed in with his jiu-jitsu has been unbelievable, the amount of stuff he can do. And I'm a pretty big guy, and he's able to submit me pretty much whenever he felt like it. But when you're working with someone like Michael Musumeci and you're trying to up your game, that's a completely different level. And yeah, I'm taking Chase Hooper. You know what I'm saying? It's the pressure. The pressure of Chase Hooper is the problem. He's going for submission after submission after submission, and his striking has gotten a lot better. And the fact that his strikes are actually pretty heavy, whenever he lands, he tends to hurt the people. And you're thinking, is it the competition that he's facing? Why they're not being able to take the shots? I don't know yet, but we'll be able to see this night because Saturday, I feel like he's going to impose himself. So I don't want to see that. I'd love to see those calf kicks come into play. I'd love to see him throw that, a couple of hooks and put him out of there, a couple of those straight shots. I don't really see that happening with the reach advantage, the height advantage. And I really see this fight happening more on the ground. And I feel like there's going to be a submission because Chase, the pace that he keeps in those scrambles are unbelievable. And once you're on the ground with him, pretty much every opponent so far has been kind of fighting from behind in the scrambles, and that's how he catches you. So I'm going Chase Hooper. I'm sorry, Jim. Still love you, brother.
Yeah, I got to admit, I'm always rooting for Jim Miller for sure, but unfortunately, I just think it's a little bit too much at this point in his career, and Hooper has shown a lot of improvement. So 2 picks here for Hooper, but rooting for Miller low key. And next up, we have Virna Jandiroba taking on Xiaonan, and I'm going to pass this one to you, Carlos. Who do you have in this matchup?
This is actually a pretty quick pick, and I'm going with Xiaonan. And I'm not saying that Jandiroba is not good, but she's got one aspect of her game, and that's jiu-jitsu. She doesn't have any wrestling. She doesn't really have any striking. Everything's very looping, and she likes to throw these very slow kicks. Xiaonan's just been getting better. And it's kind of weird at 35. The last couple of years, she's getting better and better and better. You figure that would have happened earlier, but she's starting to put it all together even more. She gave the champion a hard time in their fight. And yeah, she can fight anywhere and she can fight good anywhere. And I feel that she's probably going to hurt Jandiroba and then be able to take her down. And yeah, I just see this. I don't see any way of Jandiroba being able to pull this out. So I'm going Xiaonan.
I was interested to see who you picked in this one, but yeah, I really like Xiaonan in this one as well. And she's actually the underdog in this matchup, which really surprised me. So I almost made her the dog of the week, if I'm being honest with you. So that's how much I like her. But trains at Team Alpha Male, so you know that her wrestling's been improved. She's shown in multiple fights now that she can keep fights on the feet, which is where she shines. Nice counter right hand, which I really, really like. The thing I noticed too is that, like Carlos mentioned, that as she's getting older, she's showing improvements. And I think since her loss to Hailey in that title fight, she showed a good account of herself. And she was able to at least show improvements in the next fight and the next fight. So her fight against Tabitha Ricci, she showed like nice composure, ability to keep the fight on the feet. I like the fact that she circles as well. So Virna likes to be able to get fighters up to the cage so that she can get the clinch up against the fence and ultimately try to look to take people down. But Xiaonan does a good job of circling so that it's hard to corral her up against the fence, which I think is going to play a big factor in this fight. And as Carlos also mentioned, that Virna, with her lack of MMA skill and really just being more of a jiu-jitsu practitioner, the flat-footedness as fight gets on, I think she becomes more and more flat-footed. I think she gets peppered with Jan's jab and the striking. I think that she's going to be worlds apart on the feet. Jan, I really like her in this matchup. I don't think that the BJJ matters when every single round is going to start on the feet. She might get Jan down early in the first round. She might be able to get a single leg, which she has proven to be quite good at, single into a double. trips and body locks. She might get the first round, but ultimately I just don't see her being able to do that for more than 2 rounds. So ultimately I'm going to go with Xiaonan to get it done here as an underdog. Definitely going to be betting her this week. I like her in this matchup. And we have the featured prelim before the main card, and we have Dan Ige taking on Sean Woodson. And this one is a completely height mismatch, which all of Sean Woodson's fights, bar a couple, seem to be, Carlos. But who do you have in this matchup?
I went with Dan Ige. Okay. Woodson's going to have to use his reach to win. Pump the jab, keep his feet moving. I'm going to take a chance with this, because there's a lot of disadvantages that Dan Ige is definitely fighting through. The thing is that Dan Ige is very gritty. And the one thing that I noticed, even though they were similar in height in Sean Woodson's last fight, I think it was Torres that he fought. Torres?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Was it what Torres? Yeah, they're pretty similar in height and reach. The problem was he was getting pressured. And when he was getting pressured, if you saw the first round, I think it only lasted a round, but he was pretty tired. And I feel that if Ige presses him up against the cage, throws some strikes to the body, comes up, keeps it inside, rips on his leg, I feel that he can probably get him out of there, because if Torres had any bit of energy, he probably could have put it out. To keep him off was fatiguing him. So I think Ige could do the exact same thing. Taking the chance, I think he can at least slip the jab, come inside, rip his leg, throw some hooks, and get it done.
This is another one I was really interested to see who you picked, and I flip-flopped on this one a couple of times because I see everything that you're saying about Dan Ige, but ultimately I came to the decision to go with Sean Woodson. I just can't get past the height, the reach difference here, and I watched Dan Ige's last fight with Lerone Murphy, and obviously he came out very aggressive in that first round. He was able to drop Murphy. He looked fantastic. I like the fact that he rips to the body, mixes in takedowns. Both of those skill sets I think are going to be used here against Woodson. And I definitely would not be surprised if Dan Ige came out here and got himself another 50K bonus with a nice overhand landing on Sean Woodson here. But Woodson, known for his boxing, keeping fights at a distance. His takedown defense is becoming more and more frequent in fights. He's able to keep things at range, ultimately use his jab and his low kicks to win fights. And 7-1 in the UFC. A couple of shaky performances here and there, like randomly lost to Julian Erosa, but then was able to go on a streak of wins. And it's tough because I have seen him dropped. I have seen low fight IQ moments. I have seen him slow down in fights, but I just feel like here that the reach and the size of Woodson is going to give Ige problems that he's not used to seeing. And I think with Dan Ige, I notice as well, if he comes out aggressive and he doesn't necessarily get the finish, he also tends to slow down in fights too if he doesn't get the finish. So I think if Ige is going to win here, I think he's got to get it done in the first. If not, I think Woodson probably takes over and just kind of peppers him with a jab from the outside. So only a lean to Woodson here. I don't hate anybody betting on Dan Ige. I see what Carlos is seeing. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's wrong by any means. I think Ige is live here, and he has more experience inside the UFC against high-level competition. So a little bit of dissension here on the Ground and Pound podcast, but I'm going to go with Woodson here to get it done. And that brings us to the main card of UFC 314. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. It would really help the Ground and Pound podcast reach out to more and more viewers for MMA content. And I got to admit, this is one I'm looking forward to. This one should be an absolute banger. We've got Nikita Krylov taking on Dominick Reyes. And I'm going to start this one off, and I'm going to go straight away with Krylov, man. I've really been a big fan of Nikita Krylov. I feel like I have a pretty good read on his skill set. I like him in this matchup here. I think Dominick Reyes, honestly, he's not been the same since that John Jones fight. And we saw him get back in the win column against Justin Jacoby and Anthony Smith, but how credible are those wins? You know what I mean? Anthony Smith seems to be kind of getting beaten up by everybody. Jacoby isn't necessarily that high level in terms of MMA, mostly just a kickboxer. So Dominick Reyes, 35 years old, seems to be very chinny at this point. And a guy like Nikita Krylov is dangerous, man. This guy is a finisher. He can get it done on the ground. He can get it done on the feet. My only concern here in this matchup is Nikita Krylov is coming off of a 2-year layoff due to a serious shoulder injury. Now, obviously, he took a long time off in order to heal that shoulder. It happened in 2023. That's why we haven't seen him. He's actually mentioned as well about how he wanted to take time off to really be able to heal and come back and basically challenge for a title. So I believe he's taking this run seriously. The younger guy in this matchup as well, ever so slight reach advantage. I really like him here to get it done. I think he probably comes out here and finishes Reyes, probably on the feet. I don't trust Reyes' chin anymore. And yeah, I like Krylov here. If it wasn't a 2-year layoff, he'd probably be in my confident bets. That's how much I think that he gets it done here against Reyes. So yeah, who do you have in this matchup, Carlos?
I was just happy that you picked Krylov because that's who I got. Same thing, Anthony Smith and Dustin. Dustin Jacoby. Nothing wrong with Jacoby. He's fine, but he's kind of like tailor made for somebody like Reyes. Not tailor made in that he's meant to win. It's just if Reyes is going to win, it's going to be against someone that wants to stand right in front of him, and that's what Jacoby is going to do. Jacoby does get fatigued, and that's probably and he does get fatigued early, and that's how that happens. Krylov has just got cardio for days, and he pushes the pace. He likes to come after you. Like you said, he can get it done on the feet, on the ground. I don't necessarily think that, it's going to be a banger, because for some reason, like, even though, like, Krylov does throw some touch shots every now and again, and he's not trying to rip through you, I feel like it's probably powerful enough to start to hurt Dominick Reyes. Like you said, he hasn't been the same since John Jones, and the chin doesn't get better with age. And in his last fights, he doesn't really move his head. He just moves his feet, which is fine. If you're not going to move your head, move your feet. But he still likes to stand in front and measure his opponent. And I think it's somebody with this much movement like Krylov, I think it's a bad mix.
Yeah. Sounds like two pretty confident picks here for Nikita Krylov to get it done, starting off on the main card. And next up, we have Yair Rodriguez taking on Patricio Pitbull. And I got to admit, let me see who Carlos likes in this matchup, actually. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
So who I picked for this one was Yair Rodriguez. I like Patricio Pitbull. I've been watching him fight for some time now. But Yair is just a whirlwind of offense. I'm trying to think of the other gentleman, the Russian guy, Zabit. He's just pretty much the same as Zabit. Like, elbows are coming from everywhere. Kicks are coming from everywhere. Knees, punches. He throws different strikes. He's pretty decent scrambling on the ground. And I don't think that Patricio's ready for that kind of offense in his face. Now, for him to be ready for it, he's going to have to take him down. You know what I mean? And Pitbull does not have the world's greatest takedown defense. Takedowns. He does have good takedowns. But I think Yair Rodriguez's takedown defense is probably enough to hold him off. His jiu-jitsu, once he gets you to the ground, he's able to get good submissions and get some good ground and pound is Pitbull. Problem is that I don't think he's going to get Yair there. Yair's strikes come from all different positions. And if you watch the fight, like we were discussing earlier with him and Sergio Pettis, the striking that Pettis has, just because of his speed alone, is what threw off Pitbull. Now, granted, it's at a smaller weight class, but the fact is that I think that Yair has more speed than Sergio. I think that his takedown defense is definitely around the same as Pettis. And I don't think Pitbull's going to have an answer for it. Now, he could land a big bomb. He's known for his power. He's got heavy hands in both. But the thing is that I just think that the reach factor is going to be a problem. Plus, Yair Rodriguez got hit by guys like Josh Emmett, who's supposed to be a big puncher, has got some good pop. And it really didn't do too much for him. He got hit by Volkanovski too, right on the button, and that did wobble him. So not that Volk is not a big puncher, but he's not the type of guy that's going to put you out with one shot. So sometimes MMA math doesn't work out. You know what I mean? You get hit by Emmett, not a problem. You get hit by Volk, puts you down. So we'll see what happens, but I feel pretty confident in Yair getting it done.
Yeah, two for Yair here. Patricio Pitbull, I just think he's coming over to the UFC a little bit too late. 37 years old at a lower weight class. It's never a good recipe to me. And don't get me wrong, he has all the skills to pull off an upset here, but I just feel like he's very low volume as well. I feel like he could necessarily get pressured here with the size that Yair has. He can definitely fight at range and kind of frustrate Pitbull. And I just think everything that he throws is just going to be slightly out of range here. And Yair to me as well, like he's been fighting the best of the best up at the top of the division. I said to Carlos before we got live, I felt like Yair should have beaten Brian Ortega. He had him dead to rights, and I think he just got gassed going for the finish in that first round. Other than that, he's only really had a loss to Volkanovski, so not necessarily the worst losses or the worst resume to have, whereas Patricio Pitbull, fighting guys over in Bellator and all that jazz, that's kind of a streaky way to go. And he's losing to guys that I don't think necessarily would even be in the top 10 in the UFC currently. So I like Yair here. I think the size, the reach, I think it's going to be a little bit too much. And I just find with Pitbull, sometimes he can be a little bit low volume. And if I'm the smaller guy and I'm also going to have the reach disadvantage, I need to know that he's going to be able to land enough shots to sway the judges or at least do enough damage to slow Yair down and close the distance. He doesn't strike me at 37 as somebody that's going to leap into the pocket explosively. And I don't really necessarily trust his takedowns, like Carlos said, either, to be able to get this fight to the ground, which I think he'd be best served doing. But I don't think he has enough skill in that department to hold Yair down for 2 or 3 rounds. So I'm fairly confident in Yair here to get it done here against Pitbull. And that brings us to what I'm calling this week the people's main event. We have Bryce Mitchell taking on Gene Silver. And this one's a very, very straightforward one for me, if I'm being honest with you. I'm going with Gene Silver here, the fighting nerds. And I'm not even going to attempt that growl bark that Gene Silver does. But powerful on the feet, loves to counter strike, has a nice guillotine if he wants to jump guillotine. Throws flying shit up the middle, throws elbows. He'll point at you. He'll high five. He's pretty much a showman in there. And I see a lot of people talking about Gene Silver's takedown defense, and I think it's kind of a stupid argument, if I'm being honest with you, that Charles Jourdain was able to take him down, so therefore, Bryce Mitchell will be able to get repeated takedowns. You have to believe that Silver knows that coming in. The fighting nerds are a great gym. I feel like they're going to be looking at that and saying, hey, let's just make sure we keep this fight on the feet. And I don't think he has to keep this fight on the feet very long with Bryce Mitchell's striking defense. His hands, are not where they need to be. If Silva can knock out a guy like Bazookian or Bazarian, I forget how you say his name, but if he can knock that guy out who's a credentialed kickboxer, he's going to have no trouble finding Bryce Mitchell's chin here. And that Arkansas wrestling that he always talks about, it's obviously good. It was able to get the win over Crone Gracie in his last matchup, which is obviously, he did what he was supposed to do in that matchup. But I think Gene Silver's a whole different kettle of fish here, and I think he's going to be able to get it done. And maybe by the time Silver knocks out Bryce Mitchell, he might go back to thinking the world is round. But yeah, I'm going with Silver in this one. Fairly confident. I think he gets it done here, probably by KO. And if he doesn't get the KO, he'll probably butcher Bryce for 3 straight rounds. So going with a confident pick here in Silver. How about you, Carlos?
I am going with Silver as well. This is pretty short for me. It's to get him to the ground. I don't even think that Bryce Mitchell can get close enough to do it. I think we might be able to see Josh Emmett all over again. The only problem is Silva going to try to punish him? You know what I mean? Like, is he, for some reason, he's got some heat on Mitchell. You know what I mean? And that's great. But when the finish is there, take it. You know what I mean? Because if he can get you to the ground and jump for a submission or something, you don't want that to happen. Don't let your ego get in the way. So what I'm saying is, when he steps in, just the delivery of the strikes from Silva. The guy's an animal. He hits hard. You were talking about the hit to Baghdasaryan. I think that can possibly be another highlight reel for Silva come Saturday. I also think that people underestimate the Fighting Nerds ground game. And I think that if Mitchell were to get him down, if he can, nobody understands like their wrestling. Nobody understands their jiu-jitsu. Everybody just knows the Fighting Nerds are strikers. I think if Mitchell's to get him to the ground, who's to say that he can't get subbed by Silva? Just because we don't see it, don't mean they can't do it. And Silva's an animal, so I think he trains every aspect of the game. So I feel confident.
Yeah, I second that. I agree. Just because you haven't seen somebody's skill set in that department doesn't mean they don't have it. So maybe we see a flying guillotine or a flying triangle from Gene Silva. I'm just kidding. I think it'll be a knockout, but either way, we're both heavily on the Silva side this week. And you know what time it is, people. Grown man wearing a particular wig this week for Patty, the Baddie Pimlet, former Cage Warriors lightweight champion and one of my favorite fighters, homegrown in Liverpool, training at a next gen gym, taking on Michael Chandler. And I mean, I'll start off here with the breakdown. So I'm actually going to be picking Michael Chandler in this matchup. No, I'm just fucking with you. Obviously, we're going to go with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to get it done here. I really like him in this matchup against Michael Chandler. And I hear a lot of people talking about, Chandler's power and his athleticism early. We've seen that from him in his knockout from Dan Hooker, but ultimately, I just think with him that 38 years old, 2-4 in the UFC, his 2 wins coming against Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson. Those guys take a lot of damage. They are very, very hittable, which is ideal for Michael Chandler, especially early. Even I'd like to remind people that Tony Ferguson, even as washed up in a shadow of himself, was having success in that first round against Michael Chandler. So how the fuck do you not think Paddy Pimblett's not going to come out here and do well against Michael Chandler? Yeah, and also as well, I know that Michael Chandler's been losing to high-level guys in the UFC. But I've always said I think Paddy Pimblett is a high-level guy. I think that he's somebody that's going to climb the ranks. He's getting better and better every single fight. Michael might be more explosive, but I think that he's got terrible fight IQ. He wants to be more entertaining than he does actually be, able to win a fight. He does things in fights where he'd rather be, slamming Charles on his back, even though Charles has his back, instead of trying to fight the hands or get out of a particular body position. He'd rather just be entertaining. And I think Paddy's coming in here. He knows what he's got here in front of him. I know that he can get the win. He can ascend the rankings. And the thing I really like as well about Paddy in this particular matchup is when he showed in that Bobby Green fight is that he's going to blast kicks from the outside. He's going to stay patient. He's going to stick with a good fight, game plan, which is what I think that they're going to do here with Chandler. Frustrate him, make Chandler, fight Chandler's ego a little bit. He likes to get into brawls. He likes to, swing wild. So he's going to let Michael Chandler come at him and, come forward. And that's going to be maybe where he's going to go for the takedown, or maybe where he's going to try and land a counter shot, which his hands are always improving. When he sits down on his punches, he has power, even though, he said many times, I'm a scouser. We don't get knocked out. I think, Michael Chandler might be staring up at the canvas this week. I feel very, very confident in Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. I like him here in this matchup. Great submissions. I could talk about him all day. I'm rooting for Paddy this week if it wasn't obvious by the wig. And I'm picking Paddy the Baddy Pimblett to get it done. Carlos, who do you have in this matchup?
Well, I know you're not going to understand this, but I am going with Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. Okay. I understand that some of the, especially against Jared Gordon, I was like, he definitely, to me, didn't win that fight, but they gave him the decision. I feel that Chandler swings a lot from the outside. Everything's pretty wide. I think that plays into Paddy's favor. I think as long as he stays tall when that happens and starts backing up, I think Chandler's got to get him up against the cage to make that, to be able to make those strikes effective. The other issue is when he takes him down to the ground. Now, yes, he's got great wrestling and he can take anybody down. The problem is Paddy's got great submissions. If he can get to his back, which Paddy will, because that's what he does. He loves to backpack guys all the time. And what he likes to do from there is get that choke. And if we've seen Chandler get choked a couple times, probably been from that rear position. The next thing is, every time Chandler's been dropped, hasn't been with a straight punch, he's been caught with looping hooks. What does Paddy like to throw? Looping hooks as you come in. And there's the thing is, I don't really see it. I could see Michael Chandler winning this fight based on pressure, keeping his head right in Paddy's chest. But that also plays into Paddy because he wants you to be close. He doesn't mind you being close. He's not worried about going to the ground because he can finish you there. And I think he can actually get the finish on the feet. With Chandler, yes, he's got power. That's great. Tony Ferguson's got some pop. Even though he's fallen apart now, I think he's still got some sting on his shots, and Paddy took those just fine. I don't think Chandler has the big pop that he used to have. Back in Bellator, he used to drop guys. Specifically, what I'm talking about is Patricio Pitbull caught him with a straight right hand. He's not throwing straight punches anymore. Everything is looping, and I don't know if that's a sign of age and he's just letting everything fly, or, he knows he's in the UFC not to be the champion. How does that go? He's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. He's trying to make as much money as he can and get out. So I think that everything kind of favors Paddy in this fight. The one thing is, that he has to look out for is not being active in this fight. If he doesn't stay active with the striking or on the ground, it's going to look like Chandler, his pressure is actually going to get the decision for him. So I also think that Chandler may be 38, but I think he's got the cardio to go with Patty. I just think Patty can hurt him on the feet, and I also think he can submit him on the ground.
Mm. I will say as well, I just wanted to add, Paddy also looks on social media probably arguably in the best shape that I've seen him in terms of, physically, like in terms of the weight room and that. So I definitely think he's coming in prepared. And I just want to let the Ground and Pound podcast viewers know that I don't want you all to think that Carlos is a super big Paddy the Baddy Pimlet fan and it's a biased pick, because I'll show you a text right there. I don't know if you can see it, but he says Paddy is a bum, so I called him a hater. So I kept receipts. That text message was from a long time ago. I think he's warmed up to Paddy the Baddy Pimlet since then. But two confident picks here for Paddy the Baddy Pimlet to get it done. And the Ground and Pound podcast is rooting for the Scouser. Come on, lad. And
I don't have to antics, you know what I mean? But I will call a fight the way I see it, and I see everything upside for Patty in this one.
I had to keep the receipts and drop you in it, Carlos. It's all good.
That's okay. That is perfectly okay.
And that brings us to the main event of the evening. I'm also excited for this one. I completely forgot about this one after all that Paddy talk. But we have Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. And if you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, people. This is what the people came to see. And we want to know from Carlos, do you think it's going to be a new champion in Diego Lopes, or do you think Volkanovski get back to his Hall of Fame style career, winning his belt back, Carlos? Who do you have in this matchup?
This was very tough because we all saw how Volk was put out by Topuria. Okay, we all saw how he got put out by Islam. The interesting part about that is Diego Lopes could do the exact same thing. You know what I mean? But what I have is he can do the exact same thing in the first round. His power diminishes with his punches, which is his main offense throughout his fights. His power diminishes after round one. He's stung people, but he's not put them out. When he's put them out, it's always been in round one. His grappling, fantastic. Transitions are great. I feel like he's got a lot to prove, and he's got some ego behind it. So he's going to get a little nasty in this fight like he did against Ortega. And Ortega's probably falling off, or Lopez just turned it up. Volkanovski's got everything that you need to beat someone like Lopez. Keep the fight outside. Come in spurts. Rip the leg. Out wrestle him up against the cage, because Volk can do all those things. The problem is Volk starting to fade, or has everybody been that much better than him in the ring? At 36, I love Volk. I know you're a fan too. Problem is it's really hard to say. And with that said, I believe a lot of keys to his victories is to wrestle. I think he's going to have to wrestle a lot in this fight and just stay safe, ground and pound. And I think he can do that. So I'm going with Volkanovski. And I think the end new is going to be him taking his throne back. As much as I like Lopez, and I think he is a wonderful fighter, I think he's going to be a champion. I just don't think it's going to happen this night.
I'm going to get serious for this one. So I am a big fan of Volkanovski, and I'm sure a lot of people are. You know, the antics, the accent, the Hall of Fame career that he's had up until this point. I was somebody that, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, when I first started watching him, I kind of was a little bit of a hater of Volkanovski. I don't know what it was. He just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then he kind of grew on me, and he ended up becoming one of my favorite fighters. And very, very skilled. Obviously, we all know the run that he's been on, and obviously the decline that he's also been on. So it pains me to say this, but I'm going to be picking Diego Lopes. It sucks because I really do like Volkanovski. I remember him being the first fighter that I remember watching where I actually felt emotion when that guy lost. I remember when he got knocked out by Islam with that head kick. I was just genuinely sad in that moment. Stayed up till like 4 or 5 in the morning to watch one of your favorite fighters get brutally head kicked on short notice by Islam. And then the decline since then, man, it's just been spiraling depression for me watching Volkanovski fights. And he's just not going to do it to me anymore, man. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that he is able to pull this off from a fan perspective. I'm going to go with Diego Lopes, man. I think he, like Carlos said, he's dangerous in the first round, which is where Volkanovski's been having a lot of trouble. I think Lopez knows that. I think he gets in his face. He's got power. He's explosive early in the first. In the second, I think that he can come in and just, pressure Volk early and hope, maybe touch that chin that might be fading at 36 years old. And I just want to say, like, if Volk is, done, then he's had a good run. I really enjoyed watching him, and all the best to him at the end of the day for putting on being one hell of a champ and giving us the run that we deserved as the people. I thought that he was always active, which I liked, which you can't say about a lot of champs. But I'm going to make Diego Lopez my dog of the week this week. I just feel like him at plus 100. I feel like it's a steal. I think that people are going to bet on Volkanovski, seeing him as a casual. The names are going to see that name, want to bet him as the favorite. And I think Lopes comes in here. I think he's dangerous on the ground as well if Volk does wrestle. We've seen the oh shit guillotine, as Volk described it, or that was in very, very fucking tight, or whatever it is that he said about Brian Ortega. Lopes is just as dangerous on the ground as he's demonstrated in previous fights. The only way I see Volk being able to get out of this fight unscathed is if he's able to survive the first couple of rounds and then get it into championship rounds where he's obviously been, and Lopes tends to slow down with his power and his athleticism. So hopefully Volk, is able to prove me wrong. I'm going to be rooting for you, man. Hopefully Volk's not washed up and he's got many fights left in him. But dog of the week, Diego Lopez, man, this week. I'm going for him. I think he gets it done, and I do think that Volk's washed up, man, as much as I hate to say it. So hopefully he proves me wrong. And if you haven't already, man, hit that like and subscribe button for all of the content over here on the Ground and Pound podcast, breaking down all of these events over at the UFC and PFL. And PFL yesterday, Carlos and I did a full card breakdown for this Friday's fights. I'm going to leave that as a link in the description. Check that out if you are interested in the PFL, if you're new to it, or if you're a veteran sport PFL watcher. We did a full card breakdown, only 30 minutes, so nice and short for you guys, straight to the point. If you guys are interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description. And also, things to come on the channel. Keep an eye out for it. We have our best bets video for UFC 314 on Friday. Every Friday, I go over my best bets for the entire card, talking about what I'm going to be betting on. So if you want money in your wallets, that's the show to be. We've been 2 in a row profitable on the last 2 cards. Hopefully, we can make it 3 this week. And every single Sunday, Carlos and I have a very chill vibe recap video for all the UFC events. We sit down, we talk about each individual fight. We kind of shoot the shit on the different matchups as far as, how they performed and, basically what we see next for those individuals. And, any performances, any shock things that happen are all on that recap. And before we wrap things up, Carlos, is there anything that you want to say to the people?
I got nothing for him, man. Like it's a pretty chill week. There's going to be some great fights, and I want everybody to enjoy. Check us out on the recap, and if you're into Bellator, not Bellator, PFL, give us a look.
Yep. Same thing nowadays. Bellator and PFL, same thing. Hit that like and subscribe button, people, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Appreciate you guys tuning in and making me wearing a stupid wig. Peace.